Today is Independence Day in the United States, a day of celebration usually, but it comes at a time of deep division over abortion legislation and gun control debates. Let's talk about it in more detail. Dr. Shola and Scotty are with us this morning. Hello to you, ladies. Always great to have you on the show. Let's start with you, Scotty, given that it is Independence Day. 246 years on from the Declaration of Independence. It was once called the Great Experiment. How's that experiment going?
Well, we're kind of entering in the later phases of our teenage years, and I think the world is definitely feeling a little bit of our rebellion right now. We're trying to still figure out what we want to be when we grow up, especially compared to other cultures like Britain and other long-term civilizations. But let me just say this. Benjamin Franklin originally said back in 1787, it's a republic if you can keep it. In our entire country, our system of government is based on a divide between two parties. Everything we have is a two-party system. So our whole foundation is based upon debate and argument between the two. In fact, a lot of us would be worried if those two parties got along, because normally when your government gets along, often that time it's working against the actual common man. So we like division as long as it is respectful division. The problem between now and maybe times in the past, it's not. And we are seeing that kind of divide, and we're seeing, unfortunately, more action in that anger than necessarily the words that in the past have carried when people don't get along.
Dr. Shola.
I think that on the face of it, the 4th of July is an opportunity for Americans to put aside their differences and bask in the greatness that is America. But scratch that surface and you will find that America does not have the substance to evidence any modicum of greatness. It is a land where democracy is still a social experiment, as evidenced by the January 6th insurrection. It's a land of the free that became the land where it's free to kill. It's a land of rights that only caters to the whites. It's a land where guns have more rights than human lives, a land that women are still controlled and subjugated, a land polarized politically, socially, culturally, economically, and divided by race, faith, gender, healthcare, to name a few. There is a promise to America that is savaged by the hypocrisy of America, and nobody can deny that. So as far as I see it, what America has 246 years later on is military power. But military power is not greatness. Russia has military power, and we don't call it great, do we?
Shola, I appreciate your kindness starting out, but the reality is there's a lot more greatness today in America than it ever has been before. Especially, you start off by talking about race relations. Remember, this was a country that was in a civil war because we had slaves, and people did not want that anymore in this country. Something that we were just like every other nation around that time period. So there is a lot more rights when it comes to gun rights, when it comes to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We have definitely continued to grow and be better today than we have ever been in our history. The problem is we are a country that are founded on freedom. And as we continue to try to grow and adjust, there are still more rights for in your case, when we talk about abortion rights, we still have less restrictive rules than the UK does. We still have we have gun rights, freedom to own guns. That is what our civilization was based on. We are still greater today than we ever have been, but we also we allow that idea for conversation and debate. The problem is that debate has become unhealthy, and you point to January 6th, but you can't point to January 6th and what happened on Capitol without looking at the burning and the rioting in the streets that happened just a few weeks before, just a few months before. That caused more damage, more deaths and destruction in this country than January 6th did. So that division is happening on both sides, and the problem is that conversations that we're having are not being productive. They're actually becoming more and more, unfortunately, violent within our streets rather than productive within our government.
Okay, let me correct you, Scotty. You want to talk freedom? Some would argue that America's independence didn't happen in 1776, but actually happened on June 19th, 1865, when the last Black enslaved people were finally set free, when all Americans could claim to be free. Perhaps you need to look at your definition of freedom. You want to talk about the riots that took place before January 6th. You forget that it was about Black lives. You forget it was about the unjustified.
So burning buildings and businesses are about Black lives? Oh, that's very incorrect for you to say. That's insulting.
you're talking about race relations, then you need to get your facts right. The point here is, yes, I agree with you that there's been some progress, but my point is that you can't still claim to be the greatest nation on earth or the leader of modern democracy when clearly you are not leading in that way. You are a social experiment, and everything you're
I agree.
claiming.
We're not leading anymore thanks to our current President Biden that has caused this divide.
Everything,
I agree with you 100%. We are no longer the greatest country.
Finish. I let you speak. The bottom line is, it's quick. It's easy for you to go, oh, we have more rights than you do in the United Kingdom when it comes to abortion rights. No, you are literally banning abortion for women, and that's not the case here. Yes, we need to have abortion rights as a protected human right, and we need to sort that out. But please, you're comparing apples and, I don't know, oranges. And the point here is, we're talking about America's independence. We're talking about the freedom that is meant to be, claimed by America, that not all Americans can claim. And the fact that America's greatest asset, which is its multinational, multicultural population, is exactly what America is rejecting. The way it treats immigrants, forgetting that the power and wealth of America was built on the backs of Black people, on the backs of Latina, on the backs of those who are not white. The fact that you are not even celebrating that, recognizing that, and still
Shola,
that is dramatic. Scotty.
With all due respect, this is still the #1 country in the world for immigrants. We still take more immigrants than any other nation around the world, which means that we also have to figure out how to merge all of those cultures together so that they can go underneath the umbrella of being America, something that most countries don't have to deal with. And we've dealt with this now for decades. So those kinds of, we're writing the book when it comes to dealing with multiple cultures and immigrants and trying to bring them all together. Yes, absolutely. And we respect those cultures. But in the end, we want to make sure that they are Americans, because we are the ultimate melting pot of the world. That being said, I do believe that there are going to be growing pains. But once again, let's not put this divisiveness on the backs of the people. Let's put this on the backs of our politicians and our government, that actually they're the only ones who benefit from divisiveness within the United States. Hence why when it comes to places that they could have real solutions for, they don't want. Our politicians in America, and I believe this is also in multiple countries, probably in the UK as well, they don't want to see solutions to these problems. They like the divisiveness because they're the ones that ultimately profit off of it. They're the ones that gain power on it by keeping a divided nation on multiple issues, because when they have the chance to find a solution that is best for the country, time and time again, they refuse. And that falls on both party lines.
Yeah, guess what, Scotty? Would you believe I agree with you on that point?
I figured we could.
Right, 4th of July. But listen, the reason why the politicians can get away with what they're getting away with is because they're a reflection of the society. It's people that put this divisive, power-hungry politicians into power. So that's the reality. I think that America has become complacent, and it's bought into its own hype about being a great nation and a leader. Because with every step of progress America takes, it takes 5 steps back into regression. It makes no sense. It seeks to hold other nations to standards that it cannot meet. It seeks to make other nations accountable when it fails to hold itself accountable with its own damning hypocrisy. The enemy of America is not outside America, it's within America.
I absolutely agree with you. It is within America, hence why the Biden administration is doing more damage to everything positive that we've seen in the last 4 years he's been able to do in 18 months. Hence why we're already seeing a revolution happen within our Congress here in a few months as the Republicans take back over. Thank you, Shola, for that. That was a great introduction for it. I mean, you just softballed me that.
Scotty, you just had to do that. You just had to bring in Biden.
I had to do it.
Blame the Democrats, when the reality is that Trump caused more damage to America in 4 years than any other modern president I can think of. We can discuss Bush another time. But the point is this is not just about Biden. This is also about the Republicans. It's about the ongoing divisive conversations, the narratives, the denials, the fact that people are seeking to overturn America's democratic elections, and there are people like you who are defending it. It's unacceptable. I don't know. Kate, did you say something?
I did, but I didn't realise my microphone was in because I was just too fascinated listening to you two, and I was talking about what was coming up next. Do go on. Sorry, Scotty.
Well, and like I said, it's about divisive. There's a reason why there's only been two parties that have been able to really exist for the majority of America's existence, Republican and Democrats. It's because they can get along. But ultimately, when it comes down to, as Shola just pointed out, to take 5 steps back, according to her, that means that we were still at least advanced 5 steps. I do believe that America is still an amazing country that has made great strides in several issues. And one thing that is different from us, from other cultures, is the fact that we base everything on the ability of freedom, and freedom to speak, freedom to protest, freedom to address your grievances with the government. With that freedom, however, as we have seen society and culture continue to take back steps in how they treat each other, you're also seeing it, unfortunately, when it comes to political discourse. And that's the reflection of it, where before, unfortunately, there's always been violence when it comes to trying to make changes in our government. In this case, it's getting more and more. Instead of fighting against the government, they're fighting against each other, which unfortunately doesn't help the situation.
You cannot talk about freedom when you're denying people freedom. And I'm not saying you.
What people are we denying freedom? Please tell me what people were denying freedom.
I'm sorry. We just gave as an example the abortion rights for women. We talked about the fact the treatment of
we're giving the baby the freedom to the chance to live. See that once again, this is the discourse. We're giving freedom to live. What's wrong with that?
We're talking about the denial of life and liberty to Black people, to African Americans, which happens every single day.
When have we denied a Black person anything right now? In this present modern day, when has Americans denied Americans anything?
How can African Americans still be fighting for the right to live as Americans, the right to be respected?
Give me specifics. That is such a gaslighting talking point that you use.
That is their lived experience.
Because right now, everybody has the case. Everybody has the opportunity. There is nobody that has said you can't do anything because you have the color of your skin in America today. Find me that case.
That is such a lie, Scotty. The lived experiences of African Americans, whether it's, what do you mean specific?
Scotty, let her finish, please. Scotty, let her finish the point. Go on,
we're
Doctor.
Talking about brutality. We're talking about the treatment in unemployment, in employment, in the workplace, in schools, the opportunities afforded to African Americans. I mean, I'm saying, what kind of crazy question is that? What do you mean, or point to specifically when everybody is talking about this was part of the core issue for the global Black Lives Matter movement about issues facing Black Americans and issues facing Black people around the world. So how can you sit there and act like that does not happen in America every single day?
African Americans are given an opportunity for education across the board. There's nobody been denied based on the color of their skins and the law supporting that position.
Ladies, I think you've both had a very good go at making your points today, and we've had a pretty long discussion. It's always fascinating to listen to both of you, but sadly we are out of time. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Thank you.